Awesome. So moving on to project number 3, we're going to create a magic 8-ball. I don't know if you guys still play with that, but it's basically this round black object that you shake whenever you have a question, and it'll give you a random answer, right? Yes, no, maybe so. So we're actually going to recreate that with our LaunchPad with the help of the Educational BoosterPack plugin module. Here are the sort of ingredients for this example, right? We've got the LaunchPad brain. It's going to work with the booster pack, and we're going to combine those two things together to create a magic 8-ball. And previously, right, we created a musical instrument, and that musical instrument was using an input, which was the little scroll wheel, the knob, and doing a little bit of thinking in the microcontroller brain, and then outputting sound through the buzzer. So we were going to take that same idea of inputs and outputs with our musical instrument here. What we're going to do is we're going to use something called an accelerometer. So that's what this little tiny black rectangle is on your educational booster pack. And an accelerometer is something that you might see in a video game controller. It's in a lot of cell phones today. That's how you kind of play games, by moving your phone around. It's because they have something called an accelerometer inside. And we have one here on the educational booster pack. So we can actually use that accelerometer, which detects motion and communicates that motion information to the microcontroller brain. And based on that type of input that we're getting from the accelerometer, the microcontroller brain can say, oh, I'm being shaken, or I'm being tilted in one direction. And with that information, we can do whatever we want with it, right? Dung mentioned one idea, I could use that accelerometer data to change the frequency of my music. So instead of turning the wheel, maybe I'm making a musical instrument whenever I do jumping jacks or something. So that's one example. So we're going to use the accelerometer today to detect when the LaunchPad is being shaken, just like the regular magic 8-ball. And then lastly, we're going to output yes, no, or maybe so to the display, the liquid crystal display, or the LCD. And basically, we're going to have that same input, do a little bit of thinking. When shaken, I'm going to output a random display to the LCD module. So these are kind of the main components for this specific example or project. And then also, just like what Dung talked about earlier in the last lab, these different inputs and outputs are connected to different legs of the microcontroller. The accelerometer, for example, is connected to pin number 2, 5, and 6. And that's how the code knows which pins do I need to be looking at and thinking about whenever I'm doing my example project. Similarly, on the LCD side, this also has a couple of connections to the microcontroller. And this sort of map just tells you where these things are connected, so that when you go to your code, you know exactly where things are connected. So it's a pretty helpful map to have. So again, first thing we're going to do, I think most of you already have your educational booster pack plugged in. But this time we're going to have to move this little black jumper again. So this little black connector, we're going to move to, I think it's just that top one. We're going to move it down a notch to its original position. And this is basically going to tell the educational booster pack that I don't want to talk to the little knob anymore. I want to talk to the accelerometer. So we're basically just choosing a different form of input by moving that connector. So yeah, perfect. Looking good.
Actually, both of them.
Looking good as well. Awesome. So we're in good shape. So just like before, we're going to go to Energia, our little software tool, and we're going to follow this trail to a new example project called Magic 8-Ball. And you can get there by following this path. And that'll open up the code that'll tell the LaunchPad to become a Magic 8-Ball now, instead of a musical instrument. Awesome. So once you guys have that, you can plug your LaunchPad into the computer and hit the play button, or that download button with the arrow. So that should silence the music and change the LaunchPad from a musical instrument to a Magic 8-Ball. Cool. And before we start shaking our LaunchPad, let's think about what we have to do. The first thing we have to do is tell the LaunchPad that, hey, you have a display connected to you, and that's happening in the code. That's one of the first things we do. Then we say an intro text, the intro message on the display. We're going to say, hey, welcome to the Magic LaunchPad, or something along those lines. And then we're going to get to the real sort of intelligence or the smartness of this application. We're going to read the accelerometer. And the accelerometer has what we call 3 axes or axi. There's X, Y, and Z, right? So there's 3 directions of motion that our accelerometer can detect. And we're going to do a lot of math, actually. Or actually, we're not doing much math. The LaunchPad will do some math. that's going to combine all of these different motions of direction and figure out whether or not our LaunchPad is being shaken. So that's where we can actually use some physics. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the resultant vector, multiplying different angles in different directions to figure out where the true sort of final direction is. And our LaunchPad can actually do that in the code using some math. And if the specific output, or if that output vector is exceeding a particular strength, that's how we know that our LaunchPad is actually being shaken. And if so, if it is being shaken to a certain degree or to a certain level, that's how we know that, hey, I should probably display a random message now. And that's all happening inside of the code in front of you today. So the first thing that we'll go ahead and do is we're going to hit the arrow button. I think you guys already did that. And before you can do it, just unplug and replug in your LaunchPad, and I think that should get it going. Cool. Does everyone say "Shake the Magic LaunchPad" on their display? So that's the first message that our example sketch tells the LaunchPad to do, is say, hey, shake the magic LaunchPad. And if you shake it, it'll give you a random answer, yes, no, or maybe. So if you can think about a question you want to ask it, like, will I work at TI maybe in the future? You can try to shake it. Hopefully it says yes. So that's it. I mean, that's a magic 8-ball. Just like that, we were able to change our LaunchPad from a musical instrument to a different interactive project. So now that we have this code example, I'm going to challenge you guys to go into the code and actually try to figure out where you have to change it, so that instead of saying yes, no, maybe it says, what kind of lunch am I going to have today? Pizza, spaghetti, or ice cream?